The predators at Planned Parenthood gave her a 20-minute questionnaire. They then immediately gave her the highest allowable dosage of testosterone. They downplayed all the side effects, and they sent her on her not-so-merry way, syringe in hand. In recent years, the number of people who identify as transgender has exploded, as LGBT generally has exploded. Historically, about 1% to 2% of people have identified as LGBT. 10 years ago, that number jumped. 3.5% of Americans at that time identified as LGBT, according to Gallup polling. Last year, that number rose to 5.6%. That's a 60% increase in just 9 years. That increase has been driven almost entirely by Gen Z, the Zoomers, 20.8% of whom, more than 1 in 5 of whom, now identify as LGBT. That is a statistical impossibility. Either Alex Jones is right, and they are putting something in the water that is turning the frickin' Zoomers gay, or, I think more likely, we're looking at a phenomenon that is rooted not in biology, but in a kind of social mania. Whatever is in the water, I think the surge has to do more with society. I spoke a few weeks ago with a woman by the name of Helena Kirshner. Helena is a 23-year-old woman who began to identify as a man and transition, quote unquote, to be a man just a few days after her 18th birthday. Transitioning, for those who don't know, is the word that transgender ideologues have given to a medical malpractice in which people who are suffering from sexual confusion take cross-sex hormones and sometimes even mutilate their healthy organs to appear cosmetically more like the opposite sex. Helena had suffered from body image issues since she was a teenager. Like every teenager, especially like most teenage girls. Usually, people grow out of this and become more comfortable in their skin. But now, radicals are affirming their delusions and luring people into a very pernicious ideology. Helena began to isolate herself online. She didn't have a lot of friends. She would isolate herself on social media, on Tumblr in particular. And there, her new virtual friends encouraged her to be a man. Helena was vulnerable. She was confused. She was a teenage girl. And she thought that by injecting herself with testosterone, she might be able to solve her problems. A few days after her 18th birthday, Helena walked into a Planned Parenthood clinic, of course. Planned Parenthood had hard-earned the reputation as the least regulated place for teenagers to get cross-sex hormones. So she walked in. The predators at Planned Parenthood gave her a 20-minute questionnaire. They then immediately gave her the highest allowable dosage of testosterone. They downplayed all the side effects, and they sent her on her not-so-merry way, syringe in hand. Quickly, Helena began to suffer terrible mood swings. She had a massive increase in her sex drive. She had rage attacks that were so intense that she began to harm herself. She was institutionalized twice. She saw a slew of psychiatrists. And not one of these mental health professionals ever suggested that perhaps this major change that she had undergone might have something to do with the fact that she, a young girl, was injecting herself with male hormones. They never brought it up. They just prescribed her new psych drugs to take on top of the testosterone. By luck or by providence, Helena's fits of rage became so intense that she would sometimes neglect to take the testosterone. Then, and only then, wouldn't you know it, her symptoms began to abate. She realized that the reality of a woman injecting herself with male hormones was not matching up to the fantasy that she had had of being a man. The fantasy could never match up to that reality because no matter how many drugs Helena took, no matter how many surgeries she could have undergone, she could never be a man because she is a woman and women cannot be men. Helena learned the hard way that fantasy is not the same as reality. Fortunately, she chose reality. Fortunately, also for her, she does not appear to have all that many permanent effects from this process of transitioning. The same cannot be said of everyone who falls down the transgender rabbit hole, many of whom are left permanently injured and filled with regret when their delusions fail to alter reality.